Yo.
Eli.
Hey.
This is
the Gringo Mandingo.
That's right. It's the Gringo Mandingo. And you are the official, unofficial political correspondent of the I Am Rapaport Stereo podcast. Is it the official, unofficial, or is it the official, unofficial, official? What is the proper
No, it's
way?
the official, unofficial.
Okay, it's the official, unofficial. Okay, I had it right the first time. As the debates part 2 have just ended, I want to ask you to you got to break it down because it's so. Just what is your take on it, Eli? What is your take on these debates?
Here's what the Rapaport needs to understand.
Yes.
The election is over. Finito. It's done. Hillary's going to win.
Now, why do you say that so confidently?
Because what we saw starting on Friday evening and through this weekend was the leadership of the Republican Party beginning to completely bail on the nominee of their party, which is unprecedented in American political history. And the only thing that comes close to what we're seeing right now is when leading Republicans began to walk away from Richard Nixon during the Watergate scandal.
Right.
And it's not an exact analogy because he was the president and that was the threat of impeachment and there was calls for him to resign the office. This is the nominee right before an election 30 days out. But you have 16 Republican senators who've just said, I'm no longer with this guy, including John McCain. You have the Speaker of the House canceling an event, calling his remarks indefensible. Even his running mate, Mike Pence, said, I can't defend what he did on this tape.
Right.
Now, you and me might say, why is this worse than 12 other things that you said? Didn't we know this about him already? And I think that's true. But the difference is that it's on tape and it's so pathetic. And he's talking about going after a woman that he knows is married in a total sleazy, creepazoid way that at a certain point, I just feel it's the straw that breaks the camel's back at that point. How can Republicans, you talk about family values and the sanctity of marriage, defend a guy who is bragging about sexual assault and adultery in such a flagrant, sleazy manner?
Right.
So, I think that there is a strong case that he said that we saw this coming, but this is the thing that did it, and that started this process of all these Republicans walking away from him. He has no organization. Hillary has a huge organization. It's just a question of whether or not Republicans are going to be able to distance themselves enough to keep the Senate, or to keep the House and to maybe keep the Senate. I don't think they'll keep the Senate. I don't know if they'll even keep the House at this point, but that's the question. The question of whether Trump will be president is effectively over.
All right. Now, wait, let me back up for one thing. When you say keep the Senate, keep the House, in layman's terms, because that's something that is explained over and over, but in layman's terms, keep the Senate, keep the House. Who has the Senate? Who has the House right now? And explain that in basic layman's terms.
Okay. Republicans can have majorities in the House and the Senate. And what that means is that they control what gets voted on in our legislature. And that's very important for the budget. I don't want to get too wonky on constitutional powers because over the last 30 years, the president has become more powerful.
Right.
With George W. Bush and Obama as well. But it's very important. This is Congress, and the Republicans have control of both the House and the Senate. This was already a bad year for them in the Senate because they are defending more seats than Democrats because they only vote every 6 years, so not everybody is up at the same time. But that year is getting harder because the nominee is an unprecedented creep.
Right. And you know,
not just a creep, a liar. Did you see Bobby De Niro? Did you see the great Robert De Niro thing? That was just a little point, but when was the last time you saw something like that?
I know he's bringing out that visceral sort of quality in people because he's taken it to that level. And it's like, I'm the Gringo Mandingo. I have indiscretions, but I'm not running for president. I'm running for president of all the Gringo Mandingos out there. I'm the president of the Rapaport, but even that's up for debate and up for discussion. You know what I mean? Like, the president should be the president. He shouldn't be like everybody else, correct? He shouldn't be like, somebody that like your homeboy. He shouldn't be like somebody in theory you should I wanted to be one of us, but he should be a little bit better than us in terms of the way he presents himself. You know what I'm saying?
All right. First of all, as a scholar of stickmen like yourself, who brought this into the world in a lot of ways, I mean, this is what Trump is talking about.
He's not a stickman.
Behavior. He's not Leonardo DiCaprio.
No.
He doesn't go around putting Tic Tacs in his mouth, grabbing women. I mean, that's not smooth. That's not cool.
Let me clarify. Again, a stickman and a savage, and a stickman and an animal, and a stickman and a scumbag are two different things. There is nothing shameful about being a stickman. A stickman is not about numbers. Okay, now obviously great stickman, Derek Jeter, Leonardo DiCaprio, the greats. We know them all. Burgess Meredith. We know them. Arnold Palmer apparently was a fantastic coxman. You could put up great numbers, but it's more about the quality and the je ne sais quoi. And the reason why, let's just go to DiCaprio real quick and then we'll stay to politics. The reason why we would say right now the great stickman living is DiCaprio's, because you'd be hard-pressed to find any woman and man who has anything bad to say about you. You go, what do you mean, man? He's not sticking men. No, but there's just a certain quality. There's a class. There's a certain smoothness. And smoothness meaning not a slickness. Again, you say, well, it's slick, but I'm saying he's not getting over on you. You know what I mean? That's why Jeter, fantastic coxman. Fantastic. Whatever his methods were, leaving the gifts and the watches. This is all part of the big picture that everybody leaves happy, and you don't feel regrettable. You don't feel regrettable about the experience with the great coxman. So Donald Trump, although he's been, everybody can say, oh, this one's been with that woman and this one's been with that many women. That doesn't mean you're a great coxman. But back to the politics of it all, Eli.
Yes.
I mean, you're in Washington, you're in this world. Like, just try to give me some insight. Like, as far as it's like almost like I'm speaking to an ESPN reporter. Obviously, about basketball or football or anything like that. What is the climate in the political journalist culture now? Like, obviously you can't speak for everybody and there's so many different people, but just in the world that you're in, what is the climate? What is the sort of overall feeling about this election from your point of view and what you are aware of from the people that you're around and you talk to day-to-day basis?
So I think that the people who are genuinely kind of, I would call them partisans or ideologues, people who care about promoting a certain side of a policy debate. So on the right, true conservatives, people who are kind of traditional Republicans are in misery right now, and they see this as a catastrophic event that it's like one of the worst political meltdowns we've seen. I think that there is, from the perspective of just journalists, you have to separate this, and this is, I'm going to let the listeners in. Journalists look at something like this, and the first thing they think of, man, is, wow, what a great story this is. Right. How many eyeballs am I going to get for covering this guy, because we've never seen anything like it. Whereas I think that when you take a step back, you think about it as an American, just patriotic person worried about the country, and you think about, could this guy really be president, and what does it mean that there's a major party nominated him? I think you can sort of separate and say that's not good for the country. But from just a straight up news story, like I'm covering this story and everybody can't get enough of it. Every newsman in the business worth their salt is rubbing their hands together on that. I mean, it's a gift from heaven.
I got you.
You see what I'm saying? I'm trying to distinguish, because I care obviously about the country, but this is my profession, and there's no doubt about it. You cover this guy. He's said things. He's broken so many barriers. There's something about it, and we're as addicted in the press as I think the rest of the country is. They can't stop watching him. Sadly, it's like the entertainment of a train wreck, but it is entertaining.
I agree, and I understand it. And I feel like I don't know. It's just so frustrating and concerning because, like I said, I think it all comes down to wanting somebody who's just a little bit. They don't have to be like on a pedestal, but they have to be a little bit better than you, a little bit classier than you, a little bit more thoughtful with their words. And this is coming from somebody, me, who talks all kinds of shit and says all kinds of things and my whole life that, that have gotten me in trouble even before I became the Gringo Mandingo. Now, let me ask you a question.
Can I ask a serious question? Would you grope somebody? I mean,
hell no.
I mean? Like,
hell no.
Right.
No.
That's some scumbag. That's scumbag shit.
Yeah, no doubt.
And would you he's talking about taking her furniture shopping.
Yeah.
Like, that's something that you can only do if you have tons of money and you're just doing that and she's married. It's like, I don't know, all that it's like intersects into what a bad person he is.
Yeah, no, he's a fucking dingbat. And he's just, he's got the thing that's keeping him in the race is, and I hate to say it because I have it and a lot of other New Yorkers have it. He has that New York swag, and that's why he's able to talk that shit up there, and he's doing it so well. And again, that New York shit talk and that New York swag, it's not necessarily should be someone who's a president. Now
Bobby D shut him down, though.
Bobby D shut him down.
He has that swag times like 20 times more than Trump has it.
Of course,
right?
He's fucking Bob D. He invented that.
Of course, right.
He wrote the dictionary on it. Like he's one of the writers of the New York swag, New York shit talking dictionary. Like he brought it to the forefront. Like he's one of the people who literally brought that stuff to the mainstream. That New York thing with his work as an actor. So absolutely.
But you're right on that New York talk, and I know exactly what you mean, and there is something to it. Like he has more of that than anyone else in the race.
Has anybody more than that than anybody I've ever seen in politics. And,
right.
and obviously he's not dumb. He's not an idiot. But I just whatever, man. I think it's just frightening. Now this whole idea about quitting the race. Let's just say he did quit the race. Let's say today he said after the debates, I'm quitting the race. From a political point of view, like in terms of rules and regulations, what would happen then if Donald Trump, just out of curiosity, what would happen if Donald Trump said, I'm quitting? I know he's not going to, but how does it work from a political point of view then? Or does Hillary run against nobody?
No, it would. The Republicans would try to get it so that you would vote for Pence, his running mate. But I don't know that they can do it because a lot of states have already started voting. I think 12 states have started the early voting process. The ballots pretty much closed. So his name would still be on the ballot, but maybe the Republicans would say, put in Pence. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's over on the presidential side. The question is, can some of these Republicans distance themselves who are running for the Senate, like Marco Rubio in Florida? He's kind of got, his opponent is not that great. There's a lot of issues there. Can he pull that out in this year, or is he going to be tainted by Trump? And, that remains to be seen.
Okay. And what else stuck out to you about the debates and just, this whole last time since I spoke to you in terms of this presidential election? Like, what else are you passionate about and that like is frustrating or exciting about it?
Well, just on the debate, Trump did better than expected. If you just want to break down the debate, what just finished tonight, he landed a couple blows. It really doesn't matter because Hillary did not make a major mistake. So she did fine because she didn't do anything catastrophic. And he did not, he was going to lose. I think there was nothing that he could have done in this debate. But as far as it goes, all right, he didn't break out the loaf,
right,
in the middle of her response and start reading a Penthouse magazine.
Right.
I suppose that will count as something, right? He didn't do something totally grotesque and awful.
No.
So he acknowledged that he hadn't paid taxes for years because of the thing the New York Times wrote. But just in the last week or so since that debate, 2 weeks since that debate, what has he done? He tweets at 3 a.m. He gets in a fight. Remember what I mentioned the last time about the Venezuelan Miss Universe woman,
yes,
right? And I was like, wow, that was a hell of a hit, right? How's he going to respond? He leans into the punch. He goes
right
on Fox and Friends and is like, yeah, she was overweight. So I think everyone's looking at this who are in the Republican Party and other donors who are deciding where they're going to put their dollars and their resources, politically speaking, in the next 30 days. And they're like, forget it. Lost cause. They're starting to pull away from him because he's never going to learn, and he's just a walking disaster. And I think he's going to end up on this. Like, he's going to have very few friends. The only one who defended him Sunday morning on the Sunday talk shows is Rudy Giuliani.
Hey, well, fuck him, too.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
Yo, Rudy Giuliani, he's an embarrassment to New York. He's an embarrassment to New Yorkers, and he's an embarrassment to New York City. The way he talks, and I don't think he is crazy, and I don't think he is old. That's real shit. He's an embarrassment. I'm embarrassed that he represented our city. I truly am. As a New Yorker, I'm embarrassed, and I guarantee you, most people from New York City, regardless of your Republican, Democrat, they'd be embarrassed that this guy was ever part of politics representing the great city of New York. He's a fucking joke. He's a clown. He's crooked. He's a fucking dog. To quote the great Robert De Niro, he's a mutt. Okay. And he's a fucking embarrassment. Now, let me ask you a question. Assuming Hillary wins, okay, let's say 4 years from now she wins, it's over. Who are the next people in line that are going to go against Hillary Clinton 4 years from now? Who are the next political stars, the next political, young guns? Because the Republicans, obviously, they're in bad shape. They need to come back with somebody. And then who is is there another sort of young, rising, hopeful person that we could get behind? I don't care if they're Republican or Democratic at this point.
Well, if you think the Republican Party will say this Trump thing was a disaster, we have to go in the opposite direction, which, by the way, I'm not saying that's going to happen, then there's a senator from Nebraska named Ben Sasse, who was a Republican, who was the most consistent, never Trump guy, and he will be the beneficiary of that. It could have been Ted Cruz, but in the end, he supported him, and there was an embarrassing photo of him making phone calls for Trump.
Yeah. He doesn't have it. He doesn't have the balls. He doesn't have that. He doesn't have the swag. You do need a certain amount of swag, whether you're Bush, Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Trump, and he just doesn't have it. He's too soft, Cruz. He just doesn't have it.
Sasse, we don't know the swag factor yet. We have to see if he's tested. But I'm saying in terms of just betting right, he's the one who has been he's a senator, and he's been consistently, and he's young enough, and he's been consistently against Trump. So that, off the bat, puts him, in my view, on the respectable side. Mm-hmm. If the party goes the way of the Trump alt-right, like, if it goes the dirtbag way, so to speak, right, then, let's think outside the box, right? Why? I don't know. Why doesn't Sean Hannity run?
Right.
Why doesn't Roger Ailes run? I'm throwing it out there.
You're going to have fucking Sean Hannity run against Kanye West? Is that what the fuck the president, it's going to become a popularity contest?
In the Trump direction, right, in the Palin, this started in some ways with McCain choosing Sarah Palin.
Yes.
But if that part of it, of the people who like that kind of shit, then, why not go nominate the dude from Duck Dynasty, right? Just do it. If that's what you want, if you want an entertainer who doesn't know anything about how to run the country, who's just going to signify a bunch of shit that makes you feel, better about your resentment, then why, you know what I mean? Fuck it. Just
right.
Duck Dynasty, dude, whatever.
Right.
And then you could be a joke party. And then, maybe there'll be a more responsible conservative party, and, we'll see what happens. But this is it's a catastrophe for the Republican Party. But it cannot be understated.
And do you think, is there somebody as far as a young Democrat, besides Kanye West, who I'd imagine be Democrat or be independent, that you could say this guy is someone to look for that you feel hopeful and actually excited about, like that people could stand behind, and that has that, that you could get hopeful about?
Well, I think Hillary is going to be something of a centrist. So I think that there will be room for her to have someone who will challenge her as a progressive.
Right.
And who that person is going to be depends. The assumption is it wouldn't be Bernie Sanders because he's going to be in his 80s.
Right.
So there's a couple other people sort of out there on the horizon, maybe. But you really have to see how she balances it. But I don't think that a progressive independent challenge They've never really been able to put that together. I mean, Obama was not like McGovern. He was a more centrist candidate in a lot of ways and brought people together. And in the end, I mean, he made an alliance with the Clintons. I mean, he made Hillary his Secretary of State.
Yep.
So if you wanted to have a sort of that kind of critique that would be closer to the Occupy Wall Street, I don't know if that would necessarily work. But I think American politics will change forever because of this.
I agree. Now, on a more serious note, they talked about Aleppo tonight, and I'm curious about it. Can you explain, just in terms of 1, 2, 3 basic terms, what happened in Aleppo, what's going on in Aleppo, and how it got to this point? Just break it down so I could understand it and that people could understand it who don't understand it. Because again, with politics and world, travesties and all that stuff, I think we're all afraid to ask questions, and we're supposed to assume that we know. And obviously, we know something bad is going on. But can you explain it in I Am Rapaport Stereo podcast, basic terms, what's going on over there with this very serious, war and destruction over there?
So this goes back to 2011, and during what was called the Arab Spring, you saw an uprising in Syria, and that started off very hopeful, but Assad had seen what had happened to Hosni Mubarak in Egypt and Muammar Gaddafi, and realized that he could not tolerate any dissent. And he responded originally with very brutal suppression that he has escalated over the last 5 years. A year ago, and what this has done is that a lot of other actors in the Middle East have gotten involved in this, what is now a Syrian civil war, including ISIS, Al-Qaeda, other regional states, but also Russia and Iran, which supported Assad. Now, a year ago, or I should say maybe 14 months ago, Assad was in a lot of trouble, and that pressure, the hope was, would force him to negotiate a peace where the war would stop. And eventually he would have to leave power because he's a terrible dictator.
Right.
But what ended up happening was the Russians were able to escalate in the war by bringing their air force into Syria and setting up these air bases. And that gave the Syrians an enormous advantage, along with an influx of militias supplied largely by Iran and their intelligence service. And that has turned the tide of the war. And Aleppo is one of the remaining cities where the rebels have been able to hold it. That's not exactly controlled by ISIS or the Islamic State. And the result now is that it's still a city, even though it is now under siege. And what that means is that there's no food or water or medical supplies or electricity or anything like that coming in the city as it's being pounded block by block, where lots of innocent people are there. And it is probably in this. It's a horrible thing that's happening in the middle of a horrible war that's lasted way too long. And the story in a lot of ways is that now that the Russians and the Iranians are there, and the U.S. has chosen not to sort of engage. So people who are opposing Assad, who are also different from the Islamic State, and also probably lots of bad people, but lots of innocent people in this city are going to be wiped out. And it's horrific. We have not seen, in terms of this kind of urban warfare, it's the worst of what Milosevic did to Sarajevo, but it probably goes back to World War II in terms of that level of brutality. And the numbers are staggering. I think it's going to be the big stain on Obama's legacy in terms of foreign policy is the many missteps he made in Syria.
Well, I appreciate that explanation, and it's daunting. All right, I'm going to let you go, Eli.
Yeah, can I just say one thing?
You can say whatever you want, man. You're the man.
Thank you. I would just say all of that said, there are no really easy answers on this, but at the same time, we have to ask ourselves as Americans: do we support the idea that we should have allowed for other countries to sort of get involved and to take the side of this awful dictator in this war? Because what Trump says is that we should work with the Russians against the terrorists.
Right.
We know that a lot of people who are not terrorists are going to be killed as a result of what the Russians and the Syrians are doing right now.
Right. All right. Well, I appreciate that explanation. This is my last question. For somebody like myself, okay, who I try to stay abreast of things, but I get, like I said, when I talk to, I get so confused when I watch the news. I get so confused sometimes when I take the time to read, like the New York Times or the Huffington Post or the Bloomberg Report and all this stuff. What would you say for somebody who wants to keep up to speed on politics and world events? What's the best way, or 2 or 3 ways? Like, what is the most simple, most fair, journalistic, whether it's a show or a magazine, what's the most best way to sort of keep abreast of what's going on in the world? Because, like I said earlier, people want to know what's going on, but I think so many things you get talked over, and and if you're not up to speed on what's going on in Syria, it's like hard to catch up. So, what would you say is the best way to sort of keep yourself educated and in the know of what's going on?
I think, first of all, there's so much information out there. You should find, columnists and writers that you like and then follow what they write, which is always good. But I think a good way to do it is just the front page of the New York Times. Mm-hmm. If you can't read the whole article, read the headline and the first couple graphs of the major stories that they list at the beginning of their morning email to get a sense of the most important stuff. And you could do that with the Washington Post too. And then I would try, I always think it's good to read different perspectives. So for a conservative viewpoint, read the Wall Street Journal editorial page. And for a more liberal viewpoint, read the New York Times editorial page, and you'll probably get a good sense of the sort of overall spectrum. All right. And if you want to keep tabs on the lunatics who love Donald Trump, read Breitbart, because those idiots, they love him. So you can find sort of their perspective over there. But if you want to do that, my view is that let's just turn this Trump show off after November 7th and move on with our lives.
I agree. All right, Eli, I appreciate it, my man. I appreciate the insight and the explanations, because it's needed. It's needed in very simple terms. You're the unofficial political correspondent of the Rapaport Stereo Podcast. We appreciate it. The next time I call, I'm going to have Moody on with you.
Oh, we need Moody.
Yeah, we need to get him on. I'm about to call him and see if he's going to actually retract his endorsement. He made a public endorsement for Donald Trump. I want to see where his head's at. And I'll be talking to you soon, my man. I appreciate the time, Eli.
Thank you so much.
All right, Eli.
All right, man.
I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.